everyone. This is People and Power, and I'm Summer El-Shahad. On today's program, State of Denial.
Tsy nisy fampiasana hery na fitaovam-piadiana teto Madagascar. Ny filoha teo aloha dia nametraka ny fialana noho ny tsy fitiavan'ny vahoaka anazy, noho ny fitantanany tsy nahomby.
The poverty is increasing and the economy is not working at all, and we should take some measures.
The island of Madagascar has been paralysed by political deadlock since March 2009, when former President Ravalomanana surrendered power to the military after weeks of protest and violence. The clashes had left over 100 dead and the country's fragile infrastructure in ruins. Many foreign governments denounced these events as a coup and have since ostracised Madagascar's new self-appointed president, Ange Rajoelina. For his part, he's yet to deliver on promises of constitutional reform, though once postponed elections are finally due next month. But with international aid drying up, the economy in tatters, and the country's unique environment threatened by everything from illegal logging to drought, there seems no end to Madagascar's plight. Filmmakers Mei-ling and David Notman Watt travelled to the island to meet those trapped in the middle of this ongoing crisis.
One year after a political crisis rocked the island of Madagascar, the future of the country is hanging in the balance.
Et la communauté internationale doit la liberté aux Malgaches. Nous sommes un pays souverain.
After taking control of one of the world's poorest countries, the island's new government is struggling with a bankrupt economy and continuing international challenges to its legitimacy.
Fa tsy nisy ny coup d'état teto Madagascar. Culture de l'impunité. Rehefa namono olona ianao, rehefa nangalatra ny volam-panjakana ianao, dia tsy maintsy zazina ianao, nampitondriza ianao, nampitondriza.
But pressure has been growing on President Rajoelina to make concessions to his rivals, or even stand down. Last December, days after security forces battled opposition supporters in the streets, the U.S. suspended the trade links to Madagascar, a crippling blow for an export-reliant nation. Other international bodies then followed suit.
The extraordinary summit urged Mr. Andrew Rajoelina to vacate the office of the president as a matter of urgency.
Now those sanctions have begun to bite, with the withdrawal of over $1 billion in international aid, effectively cutting the country's budget in half. Madagascar and its people have been plunged into a deepening economic and humanitarian crisis. Shortly after dawn, fishermen are out on Lake Mei-ling. It's a serene scene. But like much in this unstable country, this is not quite what it seems. The lake in question is in the heart of the Malagasy capital, Antananarivo. The water is polluted by sewage from the surrounding communities and toxic runoff from local industry. But with no other work, these fishermen come here daily in the hope of catching the few fish that manage to survive in this water. None want to be filmed. The authorities frown on what these men are doing and frequently round them up. With unemployment skyrocketing since the crisis, people are surviving as best they can. All are watching and waiting to see what happens next. According to a former prime minister, that waiting has gone on long enough.
The poverty is increasing and the economy is not working at all, and we should take some measures sometimes to say, okay, stop, because it cannot last like that.
There is an air of expectancy everywhere. Crowds gather every morning for the latest news, wondering what the next steps will be from a government that nobody elected. But Madagascar's foreign minister, Hippolyte Rarison, says the regime's critics, at home and abroad, have got it wrong.
Marina aloha zany hoe ny communauté internationale tsy mahazo tsara ny tena atao hoe culture any Malagasy. Mizatra magaga veriky tsara hoe maninona nisy tena coup d'état ngeny tany Niger miaramila avy dia nanala n'le olona miaraka amin'ny basy. Teto nge tsy zany. dia manin'ny Madagascar no ataon'ny communauté internationale ohatran'izao.
At first, the regime appeared keen to assuage popular concerns. The day after President Rajoela's inauguration, he canceled a controversial land deal with foreign investors, telling reporters Madagascar's land is neither for sale or rent. The international community wasn't convinced.
The extraordinary summit suspended Madagascar from all community institutions and organs until the return of the country to constitutional normalcy with immediately effect.
Isolated by the African Union, Europe, and the US, Madagascar is now being branded a rogue state. But the man whose actions a year ago created this instability, President Rajoela, scoffs at opponents' claims that his government lacks legitimacy.
Voalohany indrindra moa zany dia ny tsara ho fantatra fa tsy nisy fanonganam-panjakana teto a Madagascar, tsy nisy fampiasana hery na fitaovam-piadiana teto a Madagascar. Ny filoha teo aloha dia nametraka ny fialana noho ny tsy fitiavan'ny vahoaka anazy, noho ny fitantanany tsy nahomby dia zay etaetany fiovany zay no zavatra niseho teto a Madagascar.
Activist and opposition leader Camille Miktub concedes there was a thirst for change last year, but not in the form that it's since developed.
Voalohany zahay niaraka tany amin'ny fanoherana ny président Marc Ravalomanana. Kanefa à partir du 27 janvier zany hitanay fa nibrioka ny lalana nitondran'ny Andry Rajoelina sy ny namany an'ilay fitakinan'le rariny dia izay mitaky ny ordre constitutionnel ihany zany narahina satria tamin'ny 17 mars zany fanonganam-panjakana nisy teto.
Now opposition rallies calling for change are often interrupted as army trucks pull up outside. A sure sign of intimidation, say the opposition, who claim that last year's violence was not a one-off.
Takinay dia fialana hoe miala zany le olona nanongampanjakana averina ny ara-dalàna. Akalaza ianao ny sécurité tsy misy, fandripahalemana tsy misy, ny fisamborana mandeha.
Yet Madagascar's young leader insists his opponents are deliberately distorting his intentions, and that in reality, his attitude to elections make it clear he's not interested in power for its own sake.
PDB reo filoha am-pirenena indrindra fa aty Afrika zay saritsarina fifidianana fotsiny misy fa tsy tena élu démocratiquement. Mitaraina ny vahoaka, mijaly ny vahoaka any amin'ireny firenena ireny nefa inona ny ataon'ny communauté internationale mijery fotsiny. Izy eto Madagascar ankehitriny dia miezaka ary rehefa hoe tsy latsaka ho filoham-pirenena dia mba hanao fifidianana madio mba malalaka.
Because he is afraid, because he wants to be elected. So he's afraid. And he wants to cheat. And he thinks that maybe teaching, now he wants to change the constitution to a parliamentary regime. That is that the Prime Minister will be playing the key role and the President is just symbolic. And maybe people will elect him as a Prime Minister and to tailor the Constitution according to his scheme. So I think that it's not strategical, it's stupid because any Malagasy will not accept that.
The media in Madagascar has been embroiled in the political crisis. TV and radio stations were targeted during the upheaval and many fled into hiding. According to Reporters Without Borders, in the past year, scores of journalists have been arrested and imprisoned for criticizing the current regime. Nadia Ronamanalina was a journalist with Radio Mada for 5 years. After a crackdown last year on the state-owned media outlets by the new government, she was temporarily forced into hiding.
Satria efa nitoton'olo zareo tao amin'ny radio ny anarany satria zany olatra tamin'ilay zany tamin'ny 17 mars zay nandeha nitsoaka tany naty ala aloha 18 mars zay zany niverina teto zany nandeha nakao amin'akany zanako dia afaka mijanona loloha tsy maninona sady mijerijery ihany sady mijery manodidina ihany satria fantatro ny olona da zany a ty zao ny émetteur ny radio madasy radio fahazavana ny radio problème de sécurité satria radio fahazavana zany misy an'ilay hoe mbola tadiavina iny amin'izao ny directeurny dia efa misy olona mivezivezy be zany eto a dia manahirana be le sécurité satria mety ahino hoe misy zavatra atao ao raha ohatra ka hoe mijanojano eo tsika zareo zany tsy hitatsika hoe eo a fa efa mety mijorojoro quelque part zareo dia nanao remarque fa satria nisy olo ohatran'izao zany nanao zavatra teo.
As a result of the many violations that happened during the crisis, Reporters Without Borders announced that Madagascar had plummeted from 94th place to 134 in their Press Freedom Index. Other journalists, such as Évariste from Montchavina, say that censorship of the media has never been more severe. We could only speak briefly for his fear of being caught talking to the foreign press.
Fameriko matetika fa efatra amin'ny ela tsy misy fahalalahana zany eto Madagascar tsy voazao ihany fa efa tamin'ny voanazo fahaleovantena zao ary izy vao maisa mitombo manapirofo zany fotsiny ny fisian'ny mpanao gazety mbola migadra foana amin'izao fotoana izao a anisan'izany moa ny tena koa tamin'ny fotoanandrony efa niaran'izany. Ny zavatra misy fotsiny aloha dia mampitahotra mpanao gazety ny maro ny zava-misy manjary tsy miresaka ny zavatra tokony ho lazainy tanteraka ny mpanao gazety zany fa miafiafy.
Raha misy ny tena hoe démocratie teto Madagascar hatramin'izay zao no tena démocratie satria afaka miteny daholo ny olona rehetra, afaka maneho ny hevitra daholo ny olona rehetra. Ny radio mihitsy mikatona fa raha ampianoinareo les radio reny ny zavatra teneniny reny a dia ohatran'le radio tany à Rwanda zay manao incitation à la haine, incitation à la révolte tsy mitovy, tsy afaka afangaro anefa ny fahafahana sy ny tsy fanarana ny lalàna.
But the press isn't the only casualty of the crisis. Mass unemployment, spiraling fuel prices, increasing food shortages, and a series of controversial foreign investments have brought the country to its knees. And nowhere is this more evident than in the tourist trade. Madagascar is the fourth largest island in the world, hosting thousands of plant and animal species, over 2/3 which are found nowhere else on Earth. Boasting 3,000 miles of white sand beaches, it was once an exotic holiday hotspot. But the tourism trade, only just recovering from another political upheaval in 2002, was halved almost overnight following the crisis. Over 400,000 people lost their jobs. Hotels stand empty. Olivier, a tour guide for 20 years near the town of Fort Dauphin, has seen the impact on tourist numbers. Though he speaks 5 languages and works for a private reserve, demand for guide work has plummeted.
Our region, well, it's very hard to know what is happening here, but something here is most of the hotel will be closed if it will continue. This government must find a solution to get everything on the right way, because it seems that they just play on their own but not playing the country as leading the people in Madagascar.
And the biodiversity itself, that was the attraction for so many tourists, is also under threat. Unstable government, corruption, and a desperate population have allowed timber smugglers to capitalize on porous park borders and easy access to the sea. Since 2009, deforestation in the Sava region has accelerated, where loggers are pillaging UNESCO-protected sites in the country's eastern rainforests, namely of the rare rosewood tree, exported to make musical instruments and high-end furniture. In 2009, a joint investigation between Global Witness and the Environmental Investigation Agency found that, at its height, nearly $500,000 of illegal rosewood was being shipped out of Madagascar every day.
Depuis le début de la crise, donc, ce qui s'est passé, bon, il y avait un boulevard qui était ouvert pour les trafiquants, énormément d'argent à gagner.
But not for the average Malagasy. A typical worker, perhaps once employed in the island's now diminished vanilla trade, makes less than $2 a day, risking his life to cut and haul the hardwood through the dense hilly jungle. Yet, a bed made out of rosewood can sell for up to $1 million in China.
Dans un premier temps, utiliser toutes les lignes de crédit qu'ils avaient dans les banques qui devaient servir normalement à financer la vanille. Ces lignes de crédit ont été détournées pour les achats de bois de rose. Et la demande, ils savent que la demande est là. La crise de la vanille, bon, premièrement la crise de la vanille, forcément une grande partie des paysans, ils ont délaissé donc leur champ de vanille. Oui, je suis sûr que ce trafic, il implique jusqu'aux plus hauts dirigeants du pays en ce moment.
There's certainly a strange contradiction at the heart of the new government's attitude to the rosewood trade. Although logging is outlawed, taking a cut of the profits seems to be acceptable.
Ny mesura raisina dia hitanareo fa zay tato anatin'ny gouvernement efa namoaka note mihitsy ny tenako mihitsy hoe tsy azo atao intsony ny mandefa hazo sarobidy makany ivelany ny resaka bois de rose zany efa voarara mihitsy ny fanaovana an'izy io. Zavatra tsara ho fantatro anatin'ilay izy dia tao anatin'le bois de rose nalefa reny nefany nisy taxa be azo ny fitondram-panjakana.
But for those whose livelihoods depend on the intact forest, such as guides, no taxes can replace what they stand to lose. With very little enforcement, they are left on their own to defend what little they have.
We are really worried that because when we catch them and we bring them to the water and forest, and then they bring them to they put them in the jail. But after some weeks they come back here and they would like to revenge us. So it is not safe to catch them. It is really difficult to catch them. Yeah, it is really difficult because they are numerous. We are very few people to protect it well. So it's difficult for us.
It's very important for us because we live only independent of this forest. For me, for example, I am a guide. I have not vanilla. I have not rice field. I have nothing. My job is only guide. But if, for example, the forest is destroyed, what can I do to give some money to my children and to my family?
In the south of the country, amongst the spiny cacti and dry desert lowlands, the problem is hunger. When famine strikes, it strikes here, in the heart of the Andrew region. The political crisis may seem far from this hinterland, but the effect it has wrought on the people in this region is palpable.
We are really fearing in the coming weeks an emergency in the Big South in Madagascar due to the food insecurity and nutritional insecurity affecting 100,000 of children in this region.
According to UNICEF, over 50% of children in Madagascar under the age of 3 suffer from stunted growth due to severe malnutrition, the highest proportion in Africa. 1 child in 6 dies before ever reaching the age of 5.
Children are innocent and unintended victims of this political crisis and economic decline in Madagascar. Children and their families are facing daily difficulties to access to adequate food, and this particularly in the urban areas, but also in some rural areas like in the Big South, which is affected by drought this year.
Years of little or no rain mean that food in the south is desperately in short supply. And UN agencies, such as the World Food Programme, have been doing their best to provide children with at least one meal a day. But NGOs say the problems have been made worse by the political situation and the withdrawal of donor funds from overseas.
We are worried about this situation. Usually in this is Ambwachari Logistics Center. The capacity is almost 3,000 in our warehouse, but now we had only 85 metric tons. This is almost nothing, almost nothing. But we need food right now for the next coming months.
Voka tsimisi. Fayete sa aitunu fi tsimisi tsilenge. Tsilenge zan tsiaviandro tsayu fita ufalano. Tsiaviandro faheki iu. Ihaniki iu. Tsiavi. Tsiaita vavuka tsiavi tsilenge. Tsilenge fa mike.
The ricada cactus, more than any other food in the region, is a symbol of the desperate state of the population. The watery plant, only eaten in lean times in the south, is now a staple for most people in Andrewy. A lethal combination of civil unrest, persistent drought, and malnutrition means people die here, slowly and silently. And so it is to this backdrop that Madagascar recently celebrated 50 years of independence from France. The leading members of the new regime looked on at a lavish commemoration ceremony, an incongruous sight in a country where more than 70% of the population earns under $1 a day.
Amin'ny andron'ny crise angehtsika zao hoe mazava ho azy ny valiteny fa tsy de économiquement zany ianao amin'ny maha-crise ianao tsy tokony tany aloha kanefa tokony ho tsaratsara ny nataon'ny valomanana nge manafangaro ny posy ny firenena sy ny posiny ingara valomanana ary zany tsy azo zavatra tsy azo ikeny zany ka raha izao lalan'izao aloha no vidiny sy ny tambiny dia aloha mandeha amin'izao satria.
To the international community, Madagascar's route back to legitimacy is clear enough. The regime which snatched power in March 2009 should stand down and hold fresh elections for a new administration. Only then will aid and trade links be restored and things can begin to recover. Next month's elections may indeed start that process. But right now, for Malagasy, made cynical by years of political infighting and high-level corruption, any return to stability still seems a very long way off.
That's it for this edition of People and Power. If you'd like to comment on today's film or anything else, we'd love to hear from you on aljazeera.net/English. Until next time, bye-bye.